priority areas that you have uncovered and try to see what type of projects and why do we need to have those type of projects. So that will be the scope of this week. And once we're done with this week, the Horn of Africa RI Lab, and in particular the Somalia team, will then craft proposals, call for proposals, based on what would have come out of these 2 days. So that will mean that the type of applications we're expecting to receive for these proposals will really be fine-tuned to the areas of interest as determined over these 5 days. And so your participation, your engagement here is very, very critical. So having said that, let me first give the overview about RAN. Okay, so as I said, I'll give a two-part presentation. First giving some highlights about RAN, and then looking at the intervention strategy workshop. So in a brief about RAN, so we're essentially a partnership that's targeting 20 universities across Africa when we're done. Currently, we're at about 18, and this will be in 16 countries. And RAN as a network is itself a network of another bigger network, which is having 7 other development labs, all under the umbrella of the Higher Education Solutions Network, which is supported by USAID. Of the 7 development labs, it's actually only RAN that is based outside of the US. All the others are based within the US at other universities, for example, MIT, University of California, Berkeley, Texas A&M, and so on and so forth. So, but RAN is the only one that is hosted or based within Africa. Now, within Africa, in terms of implementation, RAN is set up as what we call 4 resilience innovation labs. And so you have the Horn of Africa RI Lab, Resilience Innovation Lab, that caters for Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya, and is hosted at Jimma University in Ethiopia. And then you have the Eastern Africa RI Lab, that is represented by Nathan Mohamed's director. And the Eastern Africa RI Lab has Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and DRC. Okay, and then you have and it's hosted at Makerere University. Then we have the Southern Africa RI Lab that's hosted by University of Pretoria in South Africa, and it also includes Zimbabwe and Malawi. And then in West Africa, we have the Western Africa RI Lab that's hosted by the University of Development Studies in Ghana, and they also have partner universities in Mali and Senegal. And so through the RI Labs process, RAN is actually able to be more efficient in terms of running our programs across Africa. In addition to our network within the continent, we have 2 other partners that are based in the US. We have Tulane University, and some of you may be familiar with their work, and what they've done around disaster. And so we work very closely with Tulane University in terms of our methodology and processes around uncovering the key issues underlying the resilience challenges that we face. Right? Now, our vision as RAN is to understand the context in which we're operating, and then through innovations, seek to strengthen the resilience of the communities through innovations. And on the innovation side of things, we've partnered with Stanford University, and in particular the Change Labs, that has a very strong global reputation in terms of driving innovations for large-scale transformation. So those are our 2 key partners, both of them are based in the US. Now, still within the US, really more as an associate partner together with Tulane, is the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And so the CIS, or the Center for Strategic and International Studies, helps look at our work and helps us craft policy directions from the work that we do, given their expertise in that area. And so in a nutshell, that is what represents RAN within Africa and beyond. And essentially what they, as I said, is that we seek to strengthen the resilience of communities across Africa, primarily through innovations. And evidence-based work is very critical to what we do. I won't spend too much time on the objectives because in fact Professor Kifle had already highlighted this, but essentially our first objective is we need the data. Okay? We need to understand what is happening in our target communities. We need to be very specific to the type of responses that we are putting in the ground. So that essentially covers our objective 1. Our objective 2 then is how do we go about innovations response to the challenges we've identified. And we have very specific methodologies. The intervention strategy workshop and the way we conduct it is one of the methodologies that we have to really try and uncover the gaps that will remain. Because as RAN, we're not very old, we're just about 3 years, okay? But these challenges didn't happen 3 years ago, okay? They've been around for some time. There are very many organizations that are also in this space. Some of you are represented here, okay? So we are not saying that there is no work being done already. It is there. We're saying, where are other opportunities for intervention? And this is what we hope to uncover. So we are looking at your experiences and seeing how we can tap into that and build and continue to work in collaboration with all the different partners in the room and beyond in terms of strengthening resilience in our target communities. For our focus for this workshop, of course, it is Somalia. So that is essentially our objective too, where we seek to develop, test and scale innovations in our communities. Then the third, and this is very key for us because we are in a university setting and we are expected to pass on knowledge. Alright? So our third objective really is about how do we do knowledge transfer, skills transfer, capacity building in very many ways. So we have the traditional ways that we do in class, alright? But we can also do e-learning, we can do m-learning, in others using SMS, using videos, and so we'll be doing even a lot of video footage and pictures from what we're doing here. I hope that it is okay with everybody that we will be capturing a video throughout the 5 days of the workshop. If you have any concerns about the use of your image or your views, simply let me know and we'll address that. But otherwise, we seek to capture everything so that even for those people who are not in the room, they can benefit from hearing firsthand what the voices were saying instead of only having to rely on a report in terms of gaining from this experience. Resilience is one of those very big words, and so I think for any organization, you always want to really be able to very specifically state what it is you're working on. And for RAN, this is our crafting of what is resilience. And essentially, it is the capacity of people and systems to mitigate, to adapt, to recover, and learn from the shocks and stresses in a manner that reduces vulnerability and increases well-being. So that is the definition that we use for resilience as RAN. And how do we go about our work? And I don't know if this is very clear or it's a bit hazy for me because I should be wearing glasses and I don't like wearing them, but I hope it's clear for the rest of you. So for us as RAN, very, very important. In what context are we operating? Okay? So innovations are great and there are very many things out there, but our starting point for anything is the context analysis. We really need to understand who we are dealing with, what is the community, what is actually emerging from that. The next is the resilience dimensions, which are also quite well illustrated by Mohammed. Right? So once we have our context analysis done, once we have an understanding of the communities we are targeting, what are the key dimensions that are affecting resilience? Either in terms of being impacts or causes to weakening the resilience of the communities, or to being measures that the communities are already using to adapt to the shocks and stresses. Okay? Because the communities themselves are also doing certain things which, you know, in and of themselves are strengthening their resilience. So what are those things that they're doing? Alright? What are other things that are enabling factors within the community? So we really need to understand what is happening around that. So once we have the context analysis and then the resilience dimensions, this is where we are now at the stage, in the case of Somalia, to now start considering interventions. Okay? So we are currently at the stage through this workshop of looking at resilience interventions. We are at the beginning point. Right? So we should start as we, and that's why I said look at the agenda if you will, but it's really more like a process agenda, not in terms of what we'll cover. So it's really a process of how do we now take what we know of the situation, what we know in terms of the key dimensions and how they relate to each other, and how we start to craft interventions, taking into consideration the work that is already being done. Okay? So that we minimize wastage and we are really very efficient at what we do. Right? And then lastly, of course, is evaluation. We must always check what we're doing. And then it's a cyclic process. Because our evaluation is twofold. It's what you do in your offices, in your labs, for the universities, and we have a very multidisciplinary team. And some of the hardest students we have in terms of explaining this to It's our engineering team. Why? Because for the engineers, once they have designed, for example, their laptop, that's it, it's working, isn't it? Yeah, but then we have to tell them, no, you have to go back into the community, because in our opinion, it is not working until the community says so. Okay? So we have that cycle. So when we go back into the context that we started out with, and we're taking our interventions, we are working with them to fine-tune them to make sure that indeed the intervention, good as it may be, is actually addressing the challenges that we set out to solve in the first place. Okay? And as I mentioned also earlier, we have the 4 labs, and here now our focus is looking at the issue of displacement for the Horn of Africa lab, which is down here. But the Horn of Africa lab also has the issue of drought, and we've already gone through a similar exercise looking at the issue of drought. And so we expect that there will be calls out there pretty soon seeking proposals for the issue of drought. So that process is a bit further along, but we believe that the displacement issue will catch up quite quickly. For East Africa is also looking at conflicts, all right, and displacement, but also it's looking at climate change and variability. So those are the key issues for the area of East Africa. For West Africa, they're looking at population growth and urbanization. And lastly, for South Africa, they're looking at livelihoods, but specifically the impact of epidemic diseases like HIV/AIDS in terms of its impact on livelihoods. So, for example, one of the popular schemes for irrigation is like the bicycle pump, right? But for South Africa, when we were looking at the proposals that were being put forward,